Strengths and weaknesses. What do you bring to the table? Objectives. Teachers will be able to 1. Understand the concept of emotional and professional strengths and weaknesses. 2. Identify their strengths as they relate to the classroom. And 3. Identify their weaknesses as they relate to the classroom. Let's take a look at the definition of strengths and weaknesses. In general, strengths and weaknesses generally refer to a person's character. In this lesson, strengths and weaknesses will also include a person's education and professional skills. So what are strengths? Strengths are the skills and traits that a person has honed or perfected that positively impact both their personal and professional lives. So why is it important that we identify our strengths? Identifying our strengths is important because we can determine what we are good at and how we can use that to our advantage in both our personal and professional lives. Let's take a look at a few examples of strengths. I won't read all of the examples listed on this slide, but I will mention a few that are important and related to teaching. For example, being knowledgeable is a strength because you need to know your subject matter well in order to convey the information to your students. Being creative is a great strength to have because you must incorporate creativity into designing engaging lessons. And finally, being organized is a good strength to have because as a teacher, you need to be able to organize both the daily activities that happen in your class as well as the paperwork involved with being a teacher. Now let's take a look at weaknesses. Weaknesses are skills or traits that may negatively impact a person's personal or professional life and need some improvement. So why is it important to identify our weaknesses? Identifying our weaknesses is equally important because it makes us aware of those areas where we need improvement. It also allows us to see how they may impact different aspects of our lives. Identifying weaknesses is a way to work on self-improvement. Here are some examples of weaknesses. I will only discuss a few from this slide. Impatience is a weakness that will definitely put a damper on the relationships you are trying to build with your students. You must have patience in order to work with groups of young people. Laziness is definitely a weakness that will hinder a person in any profession. It will prevent you from reaching your goals and finishing tasks. And finally, being unprepared in the classroom will affect how you teach and how your students learn. It will also directly impact how well you are able to manage your students. Here are some final thoughts. Strengths and weaknesses both matter, and both are us. Both have an impact on our daily activities and lives. We have reached the end of Lesson 6. Here are a few questions that you should answer in your workbook. 1. Write down 5 strengths that you bring to the classroom. Explain how they will positively impact your work as a classroom teacher. 2. Write down 5 weaknesses and ways to improve them. Remember to answer these questions honestly. Knowing your strengths and weaknesses will help you better prepare your management plan. Keep in mind that you can use your strengths to your advantage in the classroom. For example, being consistent, organized, and well-planned are my strengths, or as I like to call them, my superpowers. They served me well in the classroom because I never missed a beat. I was able to keep the flow of my lessons going and stay on top of behavior. You should also identify those weak areas that could use some improvements so they won't hinder your success as a classroom teacher. One of my weaknesses is that I'm not always flexible. Therefore, I must constantly remind myself to be more flexible and less rigid throughout the school year. So take a moment to write down your strengths and weaknesses and keep them in a safe place. You will need to refer to them when you create your classroom management plan.